Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're going to be diving into taking this drum sound, sounds like this without any processing, just a little click sound, and we're going to be turning it into this. It's as if it had grown up and matured into a full kick. So let's go ahead and talk about this processing because it's really simple to do. And let me give you a taste for it in context. So here it is with the entire drum bus going. And without it, the kick, just kind of suffers. I didn't want a big, massive kick. This is specifically in this part of the song meant to be a kick that's small and something that I can later on layer in a much bigger kick with. You see I actually have a layer here that's also small, combining small things together. Let's go and turn the processing on. So you get a way better feel for the kick, punches a lot better, it's just an overall nicer thing. So let's go ahead, let's dive into this here. So the whole thing boils down to one really important process, which is mid-band distortion on the kick. So a lot of times we like to pull out an EQ, something like, we will, if I can spell here, we'll find that mid-range of the kick, we'll give it a boost, and then we'll call it good. And this can work. You can bring up the high end to sort of restore snap. But if your kick doesn't have that already, or maybe the envelope of the kick drum itself, the way the kick hits just isn't quite there, the spectral content's not the way you'd want it anyways, then boosting that might not have the effect you want. It's just going to sound like a louder, dull thing sometimes. So what I like to do is take and add a mid-band distortion and limit it to the mid-range, and man, this can just really help things pop out. So there is a transient shaper on the extreme low end. By the way, this is multi-pass. It allows you to just really quickly set up stuff like this. So if we go ahead, bypass Maximus, and we're just looking at multipass here, this is what it sounds like. And let's go ahead and just focus in here on this kick. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the transient shaper. So the whole idea here was I was going to bring up to sustain of this really, really short click sound. But since the click sound itself is super, super short, the sustain really didn't do much. So this move right here isn't all that important. Doesn't really do anything. This is the move over here. That's the important one. So we have a saturate and the drive has been turned way up. And what this is going to do is it's going to generate a bunch of additional harmonics. And some of those harmonics will also bleed over into higher areas of the band because that's what distortion does. It generates more harmonics. And this is going to give the kick a lot more snap. This is what it sounds like. Pretty wildly different change. Let's go ahead and do a before. Here's after. Yeah, so that is pretty crazy. The distortion that Kilohertz does too is also just super nice. So yeah, it's on saturate, and all you got to do is dial that up. Really simple move, something you can try tossing on all kinds of percussive sounds. With the kick though, it really does work some magic. Super, super simple. I like to use multipass because it makes the band splitting like super, super easy. Otherwise, you'd have to get some plugin that either does band splitting for you, such as multipass, or you'd have to take an EQ, band split, and send out to different tracks, and it becomes kind of a bit of a nightmare. But super, super simple way to process the kick. And then after that, we followed up with a Maximus. Now this Maximus is I'm treating it kind of like a wave shaper. So you can use a shape like this. And what this does is on the bottom, we have the input. Oh, I thought they had the labels on this. The input's coming in along the bottom, and then it gets pushed to this new value on the output. So if it's just a line like this, the input will be the output. There'll be no difference. It comes in this loud, and this is the exact same output. So if we pump it up like this, we're saying the input comes in, but now it's going to be turned up more than it originally was. So right before, this value is lower, and then I'm pumping it up. So this in effect will cause inputs to be turned up a bit, and it happens according to the volume input. And what this has the effect of doing, because it's kind of crazy to think about, is it just brightens the sound up. And this in this case, it's as if it's a compressor with an insanely fast attack and release. So we get more of a squarish attack. You could see up here that it sort of flattens out the waveform, and we're essentially doing soft clipping to an extent. Soft clipping would be more like this if we actually set a limit. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up Maximus, and we have control over the envelope speed, which is pretty nice. But I like to do the same move just across bands, so I have a little more control. Since we're feeding it more content now, we can control that high and mid uptake, and then we can dial in the bass a bit better. So with Maximus, without it, just as a reference, and here it is with it. So a much tighter sound, much more controlled. You can hear the bass just sort of setting right into place. If I were to flatten this bass out, and I'll just open up a Maximus by default and just be like yoink and just pull it up to where I think sounds good. And usually where these band splits happen, so we've got around 200 down, these are usually fine for me. You might consider lowering these even more if you really want to just nail down just specifically the low end. But I'm working with just the default band positions. So if this was just flat, that's what it is. So the bass is sort of gone, and then we'll just pull this up until it's at a spot that we like. But super easy control, and it's just really nice. Produces a good effect. If we bring this down, and we'll just pull up the mid band. So this is more of a snap control, and then the extreme high end here. Now this is pretty light. Sometimes with the high end you can just go crazy because there's typically not a ton on a sound like this. It's just that extra little click at the very, very high end. In fact, if we were to, is there a way to solo this? Yeah, there is. That's what I'm listening for. So it's just that extra little bit. So if you really want that to come through, this can sometimes fight with hi-hats and other elements in your mix though. So I really recommend sticking around a low and mid and generally cutting stuff like this out to leave room for the hats to do their thing, right? Because we've got a bunch of these nice little hats. And if they're fighting with a kick over stuff like that, that just, it's not going to sound as good in the end product when everything's put together. And when you make decisions like this too, we've done it in isolation, so everything's really clear. But you're going to do it in context so you can compare it with other things. Because, right, I have another kick that's already got some low end on it. Not a ton of low, hardly any, but, it's there. And these kicks are meant to be sort of thin for the track and what it is at this moment. And later it's going to build into the drop and we're going to get, a crazy big kick and it's going to be awesome. But there it is. Really simple technique. Just as a quick recap, basically the big move here is get a sick mid-band distortion going and then follow that up with a little bit of multi-band magic and you can really just pump up a sound in a really nice way. And I like to use multi-pass for this typically because first, their distortion just in general is awesome. And the band splitting is just so easy. So that's why I choose to use multipass. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos and have a blessed day.